Hi, my name's Dan Kelly, and I'm the an executive director at a small agency up in Syracuse, New York. More importantly, I'm a person in law for 32 years, actually 32 years last month, and I've also had a very personal experience with anxiety and depression that impacted my drug use and my alcohol use, but also really threatened my sobriety, my recovery. And so I'm going to talk today. I also have considerable professional experience in working with folks with mental health. So I can occasionally slide in a few technical terms, and not meaning to do that. I'm really going to try to stay mostly to my story. I think my story is a story of hope. I am extremely grateful for my 32 years of recovery, and I know my four children are as well. Only one of them was alive while I was drinking and using, and he wasn't really old enough to remember much of it. So um, anyway, with that, I will get started, and we'll talk a little bit about the importance of paying attention to mental health when you're in recovery, and really sometimes despite what other recovery people are saying. And so, uh, um, important to note, I've been clean and sober for 32 years. I started drinking when I was 11 years old. I came into recovery at age 24. By that point, I had the shakes. I was throwing up blood on a pretty regular basis. I had used a wide variety of illicit drugs as well as the alcohol. My earliest therapist said that I was an overachiever, that probably did not have the genetics to survive what I was doing. She said, you really came pretty close to killing yourself with drugs and alcohol. So important that before age 11, I did have childhood trauma, which I will not go into the details of that, but arguably it was significant enough trauma that could have created PTSD and a higher level of anxiety and distrust and all those things that happen to kids who have been mistreated. And so, but I also too had I was a very depressed kid, and as soon as I hit adolescence, I was extremely depressed, and I was also very, very anxious, very social phobic in the sense, sweaty palms, racing heart, out of breath, didn't know what to say whenever I was in the company of persons, or more than one or two people, and more than one or two people that were close to me, and if I had not been using some sort of chemical. So um, just to differentiate though from the okay anxious kid that picked up a few beers and turned out to be addicted, I think it is important that I mention that I did this depression led me to two suicide attempts through the years. They were all during when I was drinking and drugging. And the first one I was 17. I came home intoxicated. I had been feeling very depressed for about 2 or 3 days. Hard to tell because the drinking and using drugs and the way it burns you out and the way it drains the vitamins in your system and depletes you and leaves you tired and all that. It does argue that you start to have a very negative perspective on life, and so that's the one thing. But the way I distinguished the difference between, or at least the way I do now in hindsight, is that there's that which is kind of bad day dialogue that just talks about how oh yeah, everything sucks. It's not good. The things aren't going well, and I get a red light. I assume I'm the victim of red lights or whatever as I'm trying to get somewhere and like that. And then the depression itself, though, the deeper depression was more of darkness. There is just less thinking, less energy, less motivation to things, and very little concern for myself. And it was more of a sensation and a feeling, and it's just being thoroughly stuck in the mud, or puddle of oil. I just I don't know how to explain that the best way. And so I had that while I was drinking and driving, and I had that while I was a teenager. So I certainly, as an impulsive teenager, I had this depression and anxiety. I had been using drugs at 17. I had been using alcohol and drugs for 6 years and doing a lot of damage there. And so I came home in one of these 6 depressions. I was intoxicated, and I had a little sandwich baggie with a number of Valium pills that were left in it, depleted from the assortment of pills that I had at the time, and I took all of them. I didn't expect to wake up, but I did. I woke up the next evening and I ate a little bit. I went back to bed and then I slept all night again. And then I woke up with a bad headache and groggy. And I went on with my life from there. Easy to dismiss as impulsive 17-year-old teenager who was intoxicated, who had access to pills and medication, and so therefore probably not a big deal. And I think that's the way my family saw it. It's certainly the way I dismissed it in my head. But when I was 20 years old, I actually had made a suicide plan. Same thing, dark puddle of oil type depression, and I made the plan in the morning before I actually started drinking. And I really came to a point of peace where I felt peaceful about this decision I made and this plan I had for the evening that I was going to do. And I relaxed. I decided to just drink some beers with my friends and shoot some pool. And it was like my last day on earth. And it was this really kind of sick kind of thing that we did there. And the irony, I guess, if that's the right word for it, is that alcohol saved my life. Fortunately, I was an alcoholic, so I drank too much, and I just was unable to succeed in my plan because I didn't take the first steps I needed to. And basically, my living girlfriend unearthed the plan. She caught me in what I was attempting to plan and shut it down. And so anyway, it's really important to know that how those two things work together. And I'll get to I want to talk about that particularly when it comes to addiction and mental health issues of that sort. But what's important right now is to know is that I'm like super grateful for my recovery from substances and from the depression. I am the opposite of social phobic now. I talk too much. I'm a goofball. People think I'm an idiot sometimes, and I absolutely don't mind that. I'm very extroverted now where I was introverted, and I've been able to see my grown children grow up to age and adults. They're 34 and 32 now, and I have a beautiful grandson. And then I also have two children and a great wife that are at home. The two kids have special needs, and they definitely have a dad they can count on because I have taken care of my substance issues. I take care of those every day, and I take care of my mental health every day. And so it can be done, and life can be great. And the bleakness that addiction or depression will tell you about your life is generally a lie. So the truth is, recovery wasn't easy for me for quite a long time. I say I came in on a wave of fear, and I just could not. I could stay sober, but I could not stop with the anxiety and depression. And so I did. I eventually got treated for the depression. And since then, I've been able to succeed. I've been able to get college degrees. I've been able to move up in positions. I'm now executive director of an agency. These are none of the things that ever would have happened to me. So I will just move to the important things that I've learned from my experience. And one of those is be careful of the concept of self-medication. I think there's a stigma around addiction, and something we do for people who are addicted and people who are addicted do for themselves is they like to say, well, I'm not really addicted. I'm not really an alcoholic. It's just some other pain that's making me do this. And that is true sometimes, but the reality is there's the assumption that if that depression or that other issue was gone, would your relationship with the alcohol or drugs be different? I personally don't believe mine would be different. I loved drinking. I loved doing drugs. I really felt like I was good at it. It wasn't just about getting rid of that And so, careful not to assume that substance use has caused a mental health issue. Well, if I just stop drinking and be sober long enough, then I'll be fine. If you're really struggling to find gratitude while you're in your recovery, or you're the person around you that's in recovery is really struggling and just struggling to be happy, or to even function, and like that, it's time to take a look and have somebody talk to somebody about. That issue. The other thing is that what's really important to know is that you have to watch it with other people in recovery sometimes, because I had friends in recovery who, once they found out I was taking an antidepressant or taking some of those things, there was this, well, you're cheating now you cheat, and you should rely on a program, and you should rely on God, and you should rely on these things. And I would argue that all of those things brought me to this place where I understood that it's important for me to maintain these. And I believe that I have to as diligently take care of my mental health as I do my recovery if I want to keep the life I have and enjoy so much. And I would just put in one pitch too for you to think about. Mental health is a long continuum. Some of us have severe, or have very mild depression over bad circumstances, a divorce, a death in the family, or something that we can all cope with and then eventually get over. And that's kind of a mental health issue. On the other end of that spectrum might be somebody with severe schizophrenia that hears voices or has paranoid ideation, or suicidal impulses, command hallucinations as they call them. And so when you think about some of the classic recovery stuff that you talk about, hitting bottoms and making connections with consequences and all that to lead you into recovery, you have to think about the fact that if you're that person with schizophrenia, if it's that person with schizophrenia, their ability to think has been impaired pretty severely. They may not be able to make those connections, and we need to be able to help them to do that. And I think the same thing is true for people who are severely depressed and severely anxious. It's very important that we don't blame the folks. What we do is try to get them what they need to be able to get that taken care of, and so you can take care of both of those issues. So all very, very highly complex, but I guess I would just end with I am so grateful for my recovery. I'm so grateful for the life I've been able to lead as a result of my recovery, and I really, really want everybody to have it. And so that's why I give you my observations today. That's why I'm recorded, and people will watch that. And I'm hoping there's something I said today that is helpful to somebody, that can help bring them to the same life as me.